Hello friends, so nice that you're here, long time no see, but today I want to make a new video and this is something very special to me because I am a big fan of spring reverbs, real spring reverbs and digital spring reverbs, digital emulations of spring reverbs, and I think this is very interesting, an interesting field because the one thing is how well is a digital recreation of a real spring, how well is it emulating the real spring reverb, so how authentic is it sounding? And the other thing is, if it's not sounding authentic, then the question is, does it sound good? Because I think this is the most important part. If you have a spring reverb that claims to be sounding like a spring reverb, but it doesn't do really, but it sounds great, I mean, then it's great. However, I have a few real spring reverbs here, and I have a few digital recreations here. Namely, there's the Surfybear Spring Reverb, that's one of the real ones, the Crazy Tube Circuit White Whale, and from Behringer, the Reverberation 636 or something like this, more like a studio thing. And then I have, let me think, the Universal Audio Golden, the Universal Audio Galaxy, which is more a delay, but it has a spring reverb built in. Then I have the Tone King Imperial Preamp, where you can use the spring reverb on its own. I have the Quad Cortex here, and I have the FM9 from Fractal here, and I have Line 6 Helix Native here. And I think these are all that I want to compare. I know there are a lot of spring reverb emulations and a lot of older pedals where I think there's some very many pedals are using the, I think there's a digital reverb chip from Accutronics which are making, they are making real reverb tanks for real spring reverbs. However, they sell, I think, a chip what you can use to make your own spring reverb. But this is more like an generic reverb with a kind of slapback delay, which is often used to emulate a spring reverb. This doesn't really sound like a spring reverb, but it can sound good. One example I have in mind, I think they are using this chip, at least they are using the same technique from like a reverb that is a little bit more like a reverb with slapback delay, is the Topanga, for example, which is sounding great. Not like a real spring reverb, but it sounds great. Another thing that some are using is a reverb that sounds like they have a kind of a tremolo on the reverb trails to emulate the wobbling from spring reverb. However, we will see. We will compare them. I think if you don't know what a real spring reverb is, it's a mechanical device, which is in fact pretty simple. You have like a piezo buzzer, something like this, a little motor, more or less, that makes you put sound in like a guitar and it's vibrating the sound. Then you have a spring, a metal spring, and on the other part of the spring is another piezo who's taking the sound that the spring makes. So you have a metal spring, one motor who is making it with vibrating, and a pickup that picks up the sound that it makes. And this leads to a lot of very interesting behaviors and very interesting sounds. And I mean, it's an iconic sound because most all vintage amps that have reverbs built in are spring reverbs, and they have a special sound because they make this this trip on the beginning of the reverb, which is very hard to emulate right, which I will show you later. And then they have there's a lot of chaos happening in the Spring, because it's not only wobbling like this, it's wobbling like this, and there's a lot of stuff going on. And this is what you hear. It's not sounding like a real reverb in a hall or in a church or something like this, but it has its own sound, and I love it. And I think you can make very good use of this stuff in a very rhythmical way. However, we will see. We switch to my computer view, and I have pre-recorded a lot of samples. It's just a few skanks with the guitar, a little bit noodling stuff, and in the end I have an old snare sample which I hit the Spring with, and so we can compare it, and I hope you like it. I think it's very interesting, and it's a kind of video I was always hoping to see, and I hope I can do this well enough so you have fun and get something out of it. So, beside this, if you like it, you know the usual stuff. Like me, add me, tell your friends about me. It helps. Follow me, and so on. Thank you. Let's go. So, I think everything is working. So, we are here now in the my Luna session where I made the Spring Reverb recordings. You see it's pretty confusing, but I will work you through this. So first we are hearing the Surfybear with the skank on the guitar with everything on 12, just the mix is a little bit higher up for hearing the reverb. So, again. As you can hear, this is a real Spring Reverb, but don't be fooled, Spring Reverbs are very different, which you will hear now. This one is the White Whale, which has a different Spring configuration. The springs are shorter and very much shorter. The spring tank is so small that it fits into a pedal, and this makes it sounding very different. Hear this. And this is with the mix all up. Good. You can hear that the springs are vibrating very much very faster because they're shorter, and it has a completely different sound. Even more very, very different thing is the Behringer Reverberation 636, which has a very dark sound and a very strange sound. Cool for some stuff in the studio, but I think it's hard to use. But you will see. Okay, if you have the feel that this sounds a lot like dub music, you're right, because this is stuff that guys like Lee Scratch Perry used in their studios. Again, very, very different. Okay, so just let's go fast through the different reverb emulations. First, the UAFX Golden with it has 3 algorithms for Spring Reverb, and this is the first one. Sounds very good. This is the second one. It's darker, longer, and this is the third. Which is even longer and darker. So now the Galaxy, which is a delay, but as you can see, it has a pretty dark sound. It's a little bit in the ballpark of the Behringer, but in fact not really. But it is a dark spring with a lot less trip, and yeah, but it has its own thing to it. Yeah, and As you could hear, this was just a muted string. It has nearly no trip, but a very beautiful dark spring. Okay, next thing is the Tone King Imperial. No, yeah, Tone King Imperial preamp. Just the spring. Not bad. Then you have the okay, this is getting hard, but because it has a lot of different spring algorithms, I will show you a few, and I will talk about this later on. This is the Fractal FM9 with a medium spring, though I think the most standard spring they have. Listen. Okay, next one's the Deluxe reverb spring, like from the amp. Then you get the British, which is more like a small spring reverb. Reminds a lot more on the White Whale. Then the Tube spring. Again, just you have a very pronounced trip. Then the Vibrato King, custom spring reverb. Again, the trip test and the Vibrato King, not custom. So, this was the FM9, the Quad Cortex. Yeah. And the Line 6. Pretty different, but not too bad. Okay. Let's talk through all the stuff. I think, personally, I think that the Surfybear is a transistor version of the Fender Reverb outboard tank. Of course, not all these Spring Reverb emulations are trying to replicate this, but I think this is the sound most of us think about when they think especially about Spring Reverb, like on surf music. And overall, it has a very pronounced Spring Reverb sound. So listen to this, the different things I talk you through this. We have just the skank with everything on 12, like we had. And I can hear when it vibrates out, it has a little bit metallic going on. It's very nice. And it has something that is very, very important, I think, is that the trip on a Spring Reverb is on the very first hit, on the very first transient. There is a pronounced trip, and then it goes very fast in this wobbly brrr. But the trip is just on the start of the note. This is a very important thing. Listen to it. Okay. Then you have on most Spring Reverbs a twirl knob. Twirl is often on digital reverbs recreations, Spring Reverb recreations, often used as the tail of the reverb. So how long it reverbs, but reverberates, you know what I mean. However, the thing is, in a real spring, you can't really adjust the lengths. What it does is it's more like a gain from the signal that's hitting the spring on the front. So if you have more twirl, you get distortion in the spring, and you get more trip, and you get a little longer because it's hitting harder. And if the twirl is down, you in most springs, if you turn the twirl completely down, you have no reverberation at all. So listen, this is the Surfybear with near zero twirl. Nearly nothing. Okay, so the 12 full up. You have a very pronounced, it is harder, it is a little bit distorted, not much in this device, but it is. Then the tone knob. the 0, and the tone knob up. Here you have it very pronounced, the trip. But the trip is just on the start, the hit, that is a pew, and then it goes in the rattling. So, there I just recorded a little bit of pseudo playing again, but of course, this is much too much reverb, but it's just about hearing it. So let's do the same with a white whale. Again, the scale. It's not too much. 12 down, which is not making much difference. 12 completely up. They have the fast rattling, but nearly no trip. Tone. Down. Tone up. This is interesting. You get a very metallic overtone here. This is something of the quirks that Spring Reverbs can do. And playing. As you see, it's very different. It's okay. It's not my favorite. The Behringer, very dark stuff. I don't know if I have recorded anything else with this. I just think the snare, because this is not very usable folk guitar, I think. However, listen to the Universal Audio Golden, which I think is a brilliant, brilliant emulation of a Spring Reverb. Listen to this. And again, compare this to the Surfybear. That's the Surfybear. And this is the version A of Universal Audio. This is very near. And what they are doing on Universal Audio, which the thing they got, I think, more right than anyone else, is they have a trip on the start of the note. When you hit it hard, it gets a trip, and then it goes. Really, it's the hit, and then it goes very fast in the rattling. What everyone other is doing, most anyone other, is they have the trip, and the trip stays there, but it gets quieter. So you have the trip sound, and it just goes quieter, but it's all the trip. The trip is not a single happening. Just that you hear what I say now. The Fractal FM9. Fractal is doing this extremely pronounced. You can hear this here, and it's sounding very artificial. You get the trip, and then the trip is bouncing crazy around, and it's listen to it. Do you get what I mean? The trip is all the time there. It's just going a little bit faster, slower. It gets quieter, but this has nothing to do with the real Spring Reverb like the Surfybear or the Universal Audio. Okay, Universal Audio Tank B is darker, a little more rattly, but very nice. Here, the decay. Can you listen there? Is a metallic rattling, and this is so nice, emulated, I think. And here on the third, there's so much happening. There is enough chaos. That's not another thing that is very interesting on Spring Reverbs. Listen again to the Surfybear. Is that of course you hear the rattling, and the rattling is, but the rattling is going into the spring, back, forth, and it's overshadowing each other and blah, and it's a lot of chaos. And you hear in the trail. This is something to get right is very hard. For example, there is a good example where the quad Cortex tries to do something like this, but it is extremely uniform. Listen to this. It is just... There's no chaos. So it sounds artificial, kind of. Okay, let's go on. We were at the Golden. Again, this is the Golden with a tone knob, down and up. Here again. Trip just on the start, and then chaos. Very nice, very well done. I'm not a fan of everything Universal Audio does, not at all, but this one they got right. That's the Universal Audio Golden. This is very interesting if you compare this to the Surfybear. It's so near to a real Spring Reverb. However, let's go on. The Galaxy, which has the dark reverb. I played with a 12. 12 down, 12 up. And even there, you have no trip, but you have... It's dark, but lovely. Different, but very nice. Okay, let's go on. The Tone King, Imperial Preamp. I was very curious about this because I don't think it's on their website, but somewhere where it was announced, there was, I could read that it should be an convolution reverb, which are which are able to do good Spring Reverb stuff. But I don't think it is like this, because you have again, maybe it is there is some trickery, like they have the trip of the Spring Reverb and then repeat it just in lower in volume, and then you have a generic reverb underneath. This is what I think that it sounds like. It sounds like they have a trip emulated, kind of, that is going just quieter, and it's not just going way like in the real Spring Reverb. And then they have an generic reverb underneath it. So more or less it sounds to me like two reverbs, because this is interesting. If you use the dwell knob, it is just from more or less the second generic reverb is 0. So you just have the trip and the trip rattle. And if you go up, you have more or less infinity reverb, but there's nothing happening to the sound. It's just the generic reverb underneath it is going longer. Listen to this. This is with everything at 12. Which, by the way, sounds good. It is very good in a live context, pretty good usable. And this is the reverb with a 12 completely off, so you have nothing of the second generic reverb. And if you get it completely full up, the 12, you hear that the drip and the reverb, the springy stuff, is being completely the same, just the other reverb under it is long. And it builds up. And this has nothing to, it sounds very nice, but it has nothing to do with a real Spring Reverb. Without, with. So compare this here, the tail, with the tail of the Surfybear. Very different. Okay, not a problem. It's just very different. But if you play with it. It's the Tone King. It is pretty usable, but it has. But what is bothering me is the you hear this very good. The trip is just going quieter, and it's always trip, 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 trip. So now we go to the Fractal, and I have to say this is the up-to-date firmware for the 9th July of 25. So this is the best Spring Reverb they have at the moment, and I think that Fractal is doing very good stuff with blade reverbs and other reverb stuff, but Spring Reverbs, even if they tried, I don't like them very much. If it's about sounding natural and like a real Spring Reverb. The medium Spring is okay. But this, there you have it more than in any other reverb. They have the trip, and the trip is going, but it's just a lot of trip rattling. Again, the Surfybear. And in fact, we can do this. The Surfybear is a transistor version of the tube spring that is emulated in the Fractal. So there's a pretty direct comparison. Again, Surfybear. And then listen to Fractal's version of the tube reverb, tube spring reverb. And you have this trip build-up. To me, it sounds very artificial. You can hear the worst is the Vibrato King. This is just awful. And sounds very... So, however, I don't like it, so... sorry, Fractal. Fractal is doing a lot of stuff very good, but not the Spring Reverbs. This is the Deluxe Spring. Yeah. Let's go on. Quad Cortex. Also, nothing that resembles a real Spring Reverb. It has not a real trip, and it has a very uniform and not chaotic way of rattling out. It's a little bit like an fast tremolo on the. It's not really this, but it. In fact, this has something. It sounds a little bit like the white whale from the fast and uniform rattling. Yeah, but it's different. However, it's not so interesting and very generic sounding. You can do a few things with a more bowing or dampening, but it's not that interesting. Okay, let's go on line 6, Helix. Native in this case. This is interesting because I think it doesn't sound like one of the real Spring Reverbs I have here, but it is a little bit more believable because it's a little bit more chaotic and it's more happening there. Listen to this. One problem I have, it's the hot spring, so the newest version of their spring. It has a good trip, but it has a very short tail, which is strange, and you can't get it longer than this. However, I think that even if it's not sounding completely natural, it is sounding very interesting because there's a lot of things happening. There's the metallic clanging in the overtones. There's the rattling. There's the trip. It's interesting. and you have the trip really on the beginning, and then it's fade away directly, and then there's the rattling going and the stuff. I like it. It's different, but I like it. So listen to all the stuff again in the most everything in the middle with a snare drum sample. I have to say a noisy snare drum sample, but a noisy snare sample, snare drum sample. Okay, like this. Surfy. White Whale. Behringer. Universal Audio Gold. Galaxy. Tone King. Gets more artificial. FM9. Cortex. And line 6, I think I don't have it. Doesn't matter. Again, I think that this is very interesting. All of that stuff, first, it's just my opinion. Second, if you have one of the reverbs that I don't like, doesn't mean it doesn't sound when you play it and when you use it in an everyday. Okay, this is something that everybody says. If you in a band in a band situation, nobody's hearing it. But if you going with this mantra, you don't need a good modeler or good effects at all because nobody's hearing it. This is this is boring. You can argue like this, and I think it's true for the most part. But the thing is, you have to have fun with what you're doing, and in this case, the sound is very, 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 very important. And I think, for my personal taste, again, Surfybear is the real thing. Let's do it in a row. From what I like most to what I like least. Hoo. Again, the Surfybear. Lovely. After this, Golden. Or more, I like the B, the second, this one more. This is great. Doesn't sound the same, but it's great. After this I think the Galaxy, even if it's very dark. But it's good, usable, and it sounds good. Then I think I can use the Tone King. Sorry. I think I can use the Tone King. Yeah. Then from the reals, the Behringer is not very usable to me. It's too strange. And the White Whale, not so much too for me. However, then I think the Quad Cortex is sounding very boring, but it is not so obvious in a mix. Oh, what I forgot, sorry, line 6 is definitely before Quad Cortex, White Whale. It is after the Universal Audios. I think line 6 is the most interesting, even if it's very short. Then the Quad Cortex and the least I don't like at all is the Fractal. And I'm sorry, this year. And it's not just about... I took a lot of time trying to dial them in, because you can dial in most anything with Fractal stuff. But I couldn't come close and get the stuff out that I don't like about them. And the thing is, with the Fractal Spring Reverbs, the problem is that there are artifacts, or no, not artifact, features in the sound of their Spring algorithms that I don't like, and I can't dial them out. Something like the Helix, or which is just more interesting, and the Quad Cortex, which is just plain boring, but it's not bothering. It's boring, but not bothering. On the Fractal, it's just bothering me, and I think the best Spring Reverb emulations that you can buy to date are the Universal Audio. Even again, I don't like everything from them, and I don't like a few of their marketing decisions and company stuff. And I think you know what I'm talking about. But I really like their Spring Reverbs, and because the Surfybear I have in the studio, and I like it very much here. But of course, not of course, but I don't use it live. It's just too big, and yeah. I think that's it. I think there you have it. I mean, a real comparison of real Spring Reverbs and a few of the on-market, higher-priced Spring Reverb stuff. And on all Fractal and Quad Cortex users, don't be mad at me. I like their stuff. The FM9 is a great device for live use, and the Quad Cortex is okay, and it's not the best for me. It's just not for me. I think I will sell it soon, but however, they are really good devices. Just in the Spring Reverb area, I don't think they are. I think Quad Cortex is just generic, and they don't tried to really nail it, and I think Fractal just doesn't nail it, because they overhauled their Spring Reverb and they got better from before, but they are still nothing near to a real Spring Reverb. They sound very gimmicky and artificial in comparison to a real Spring Reverb. And in fact, I don't know if he would agree, but I was reading a lot in the forums of Fractal before, and I think that just Cliff is just not a big fan of Spring Reverbs, and maybe this is the point. I mean, if you don't like something you're working on, there are good chances that it won't be turning out very good. That's it. I hope you liked it. I hope you had fun with the Spring Reverb comparison. And yeah, I think I have nothing more to say. Again, if you like it, follow me and stuff. And I will try to do more videos. It's a little bit hard at the moment because there's not much time for it, but I give my best. Have a good one.